Mike Nieheiser, founder of Beacon Rock Research for Mining Clips, and with me is Andy Hay, Corporate Communications for Northern Freegold Resources, that's NFR on the Toronto Venture Exchange. Andy, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Mike. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, why don't you tell me about, I've been up to the Northern Freegold project a couple times, but why don't you tell me about it?
Well, Northern Freegold is it's a district-scale project about 200 kilometers northwest of Whitehorse. We're just outside of Carmacks along an all-weather government-maintained gravel road. Connects to the Klondike Highway, which runs out of Whitehorse. We're a company that has a couple of fairly large deposits. We currently have the Nucleus Zone and the Revenue Zone. Essentially, they're 3 million ounces in total of gold, 6 million ounces gold equivalent. We have another deposit, the Tinta deposit, that's a little bit further to the east of that. That's a much smaller, higher grade polymetallic resource. And we have about 20 other mineralized zones that we've just begun starting to do some work on as of this last year.
So the Nucleus is a gold-only zone for the most part, and Revenue is a copper-gold. Is that right?
Nucleus is actually gold, predominantly gold. Although it's gold-copper, it's predominantly gold. And the Revenue Zone is basically a third gold, copper, and moly.
Now, John often talks about how much of this project has been explored, but is it still only about 5%?
Actually, yeah, it's still only about 5%. We didn't actually get any drilling done this past year, so we've actually only drill tested 7 of the existing 20 projects that we have, and that just takes up a very small percentage of the current property package. So,
why don't you tell me about what you've been doing this last year, because I think it's interesting, because you've been active in the area that was really part of the initial discovery back almost about 100 years ago now.
Yeah, well, Mike, what we ended up doing this year, we decided, partially because of the tone of the markets and to conserve capital this year, we decided that we'd spend some time doing a bit of soil sampling, trenching, and basically working on some of the projects that have some higher grade gold potential. So we worked at 3 of our other areas, the Seymour, Discovery, and Dart areas. And during that process, we actually, in fact, I think you might have been on the property at the time, we ended up finding out that there were some interesting showings turning up at one of the placer operations that was being done at one of the other areas on the property. We ended up going down there. Our geological staff ended up looking at the material that was being recovered and at the bedrock that had been uncovered by the placer operation, and decided we'd go in there as well this year and do some trenching on that particular area. So the placer operators had uncovered an 80-meter long extension or an 80-meter long, basically an 80-meter long trench while they were working on the placer or putting the material into the placer operation. And the trenches we took, we ended up coming up with some very high-grade numbers in gold. And so that's the area that I think we're going to end up focusing on for this coming exploration cycle.
So tell me, what are your plans for this year?
Well, for this year, I think I can't really tell you what we're going to do for sure this year yet. They're still studying some of the material from last year that came out of the exploration programs, but I think we're going to try and do some work at the Irene discovery again this year. Most of that's going to be determined sometime over the next several weeks, and I expect we'll have an answer for that sometime probably prior to the PDAC.
So you're pulling together all the samples and so forth and from the project work over the summer, and probably in the next couple months or so, do you think we'll be hearing some more?
I'd expect we'll probably hear something prior to PDAC. I know that Paul and John and the rest of the geological staff are reviewing last year's information and putting that together with planned budgets for the year. And so I'm not able to really give you any specifics at this point yet, but I think we should have that in the next several weeks.
Well, Andy Hay, thank you very much for joining me again. I'm Mike Nieheiser, and I do happen to own shares and have been compensated in the past to write on Northern Freegold. Andy Hay, Corporate Communications, Northern Freegold Resources, that's NFR and the Toronto Venture Exchange. Thanks again, Andy.
Thanks, Mike. Pleasure to be here.